สวัสดีค่ะยินดีต้อนรับเข้าสู่ช่องจัสมินใจ569นะคะวันนี้นะคะแจนก็จะพามาพบกับคุณทอมนะคะเขาเป็นนักเขียนชื่อดังในซิลิคอนวัลเลย์นะคะก็เดี๋ยวยังไงโอเค I need to translate in Thai first
Sure.
Okay can you introduce yourself Can you introduce yourself
Yeah, my name is Tom Mahon, and I've been a writer most of my life and done a lot of other things too. I'm also a glass artist and a filmmaker. So I've had a different background, but most of my life I've written just for the pleasure of it as well as for an income.
ก็translator โอเคเขาก็เป็นนักเขียนนะคะแล้วก็เป็นแบบฟิล์มเมกเกอร์ก็คือคนที่ทำผลิตในส่วนของหนังด้วยนะคะ and can you give us for example for your work like for the writing book for the book
I came to Silicon Valley just as it was starting. And I wrote the first novel set in Silicon Valley. And it was fiction. But then my publisher asked me to do a nonfiction book. So I wrote that 30 years ago. And that was reckoned as a book of the year by the Computer Press Association.
Wow.
And then we started having a family. And I did not want my kids to have an absentee father. It would have been so easy just to do writing and the kids. I've known too many families where people sacrifice their parenting for their work. I didn't want to do that. So I put writing aside for a long time. And
Can we pause a bit? Okay. According to you said you don't want your kids to stay by themselves, like because you're just working.
well, their mother was with them, but it was. I could be gone every day and only see our kids when I got home and they were asleep.
That's right.
Or on weekends. So I didn't want that. And so I was writing two ways. One, what I wanted to write. Two, what I was paid to write by my clients. And that took priority. So by the time my public relations would have meant no sleep at all. So I would have been working 20-hour days. So I put away my creative writing and focused on my public relations writing.
Which like company or you do it for like all Silicon Valley?
Well, over 30 years I had probably 100 companies, but I did work for Intel, Hewlett Packard, Autodesk, and a whole lot of startup companies.
Okay.
And some of for a long time I represented the company that made the first Wi-Fi chips. And when we launched the company, nobody knew what to call it. They hadn't invented the word Wi-Fi yet. So it was called technically Wireless Ethernet compliant with the IEEE 802.11 protocol,
Okay.
which is a lot of gobbledygook. Somebody finally said, let's call it something else. Let's call it wireless fidelity. So it became Wi-Fi.
Okay. Like became Wi-Fi. Like it's not about Wi-Fi we use, right? It's just
It's like Wi-Fi you're using right now, yeah.
It's like company that they produce Wi-Fi.
They produced a chip, a semiconductor,
Okay.
that enabled Wi-Fi on laptops.
Okay.
But in the beginning, nobody knew what to call it. So a bunch of companies that were getting into that field got together and said, we need a name that's easy to remember. And a long time ago, music used to be called hi-fi. So somebody remembered that and said, let's call this Wi-Fi. So from high fidelity to wireless fidelity. Am I getting too far? I think I am.
It's okay. It's okay. I still catch up. I still understand. Okay, you talk about.
Okay, maybe the way to put it is, when I came to Silicon Valley, I had no training as an engineer doing electronic engineering. And I tried to learn how to do engineering so I could write about it.
Wait, you graduate about film, right?
Yes.
And when you go to Silicon Valley, they taught you to be like engineer.
I wanted to learn it. Okay. Nobody taught me. I wanted to learn for myself.
Okay.
So I started reading books.
Okay.
And after a while, I realized I will never be an engineer because I just don't think that way. But then I realized that everybody around here is an engineer. Plenty of people do that. My interest is in where does what's going on here now fit in all of history that's led up to now, and what may we possibly go to from here.
Okay. And after that, you change yourself from like study engineer to be like PR, public relation. How was it in the beginning?
Well, I come from the Midwest, from the middle of the country, and things are much faster in California. So it took a while to get used to living at California speed, which is 1,000 miles an hour or more, and in the Midwest it's 100 miles an hour. So it took a while for me to get used to the speed of life here and the commute. Commutes are awful, as you may know, especially because I lived 50 miles from Silicon Valley. So I had a long commute, and it would take 2 hours one way. So I was driving 4 hours a day. That's too much.
Okay. And how about the work? What do you do for like public relation? Can you explain?
Sure. Companies make new products all the time. And they would they would like to put out a news release that they now have a company, they now have a product that will do twice as much as the product last year. That's Moore's Law. Have you ever heard of that?
No.
Okay. Well, it's you can double what something can do every year. So they would want to announce that last year we could do 100 units, now we can do 200 or 300 units of work. And so I would write those, and then I would send them to publications that follow semiconductors. And there were a lot of them. There were dozens of magazines covering electronics and computers. And there were more every year. So I would have to stay in touch with who are the right people to get this news to arrange interviews with working engineers, and then to follow up with maybe writing a white paper or a longer technical paper. And then some companies wanted to go public, to become public companies, to sell stock. And so we would also have to reach business press. like business press, Forbes, Fortune, Wall Street Journal, New York Times. So there were trade magazines just for electronics, and business publications read by investors who might, we hope, want to invest in this company.
And at that time, did you write the book already? Like,
Yeah.
okay. And you said like after you decide, you consider about your family, and what next? Like you quit the job or something?
No, I kept my job. I put aside writing
Okay.
because feeding the children seemed to take priority.
Understand.
Yeah. Okay. Good.
Let me translate a bit. ก็ของคุณทอมเนี่ยเขาก็ทำงานในซิลิคอนวัลเลย์นะคะเป็น PR เนี่ยมาเกือบ30 ปีแล้วเขาก็ได้รางวัลในส่วนของผลงานของเขาด้วยแต่ว่าระหว่างทางที่มาเนี่ยคือตอนแรกเลยที่ไปซิลิคอนวัลเลย์เนี่ยค่ะเขาตั้งใจว่าจะไปเป็นวิศวะเอนจิเนียร์ใช่ไหมแล้วพอทำไปทำมาเขาสึกว่าสมองเขาแบบเหมือนรับไม่ได้กับคิดไม่ได้แบบนั้นคิดไม่ได้กับในส่วนของพวกการคิดเป็นหลักการตรรกะเหตุผลต่างๆของวิศวกรนะเขาก็เลยโอเคเปลี่ยนตัวเองพอเขาเรียน literature มาก็เกี่ยวกับวรรณคดีใช่ไหมเขาก็เลยเปลี่ยนตัวเองเปลี่ยนสายตัวเองมาเป็นในส่วนของการทำPR นะคะ marketing เขาก็ทำ PR ไปแล้วเขาก็เขียนผลงานสร้างสรรค์ของเขาไปซึ่งผลงานเขาเนี่ยก็ได้แบบเป็นท็อปเหมือนหนังสือในปีนั้นอะ best of the year นะแล้วทีนี้แต่ว่าอยู่ๆเนี่ยพอเขามีลูกเนี่ยเขาก็ต้องเหมือนกับหยุดก่อนเพราะว่าทำ PR เนี่ยก็ทำทั้งวันอยู่แล้วแล้วจะมาให้เขียนหนังสือด้วยบางทีมันเขียนไม่หมดเขาก็เลยโอเคหยุดในส่วนของการทำหนังสือความคิดที่แบบว่าเขียนหนังสือที่แบบใช้ความคิดสร้างสรรค์ของตัวเองแล้วก็มุ่ง PR ไปอย่างเดียวโอเค
Like you said.
Okay, and so and like how long did you stop for create the writing that for yourself? 15 years?
At least 15, maybe 20. Yeah.
And you stop for like 15 years until your your kids grow up, something like that?
Yeah.
And you come back to write again?
Yep. And so that's what I'm doing now. I don't do public relations anymore because in Silicon Valley now, if you're over 40, and I'm over 40.
Really?
I'm 41.
Okay.
They don't want people over 40.
Oh.
They don't want experience.
Oh, really?
That's right. As Zuckerberg says, move fast and break things. I think that's foolish, but that's the way it is. If you have years of experience, it's time for you to leave.
Because they could not create something? Like why? Just 41? Because idea or something? Or?
They don't want people who think.
Mark Zuckerberg Facebook นะคะ
They want to rewrite the rules, so they don't want people who know the old rules. They want people who think in a new way, and we'll see what happens.
Did you talk with him before?
Talk with Zuckerberg? No, I don't know him personally, but he has said that's the mantra at Facebook is move fast and break things.
Okay.
But if you follow the news, he's getting in a lot of trouble for that. Breaking the laws, many of the laws, and think that he's so successful he can just keep doing that. And Congress is probably going to start putting barriers around what Facebook and Google and Apple can do.
How about like someone like did you meet like Bill Gates or Steve Jobs, something like that?
I used to see Steve Jobs a lot. Well,
did you talk with him?
No, but I would meet him one-on-one in like an airport lounge or on an elevator. And if he looked at you he was like a tractor beam. I mean, he would just draw you in. It was incredible. If he locked eyes on you, you felt like you had no willpower left. It was, I will follow you, Steve. And other people have said the same thing, that
like he has a lot of power or something like that, like
I don't know. I mean, if he focused on you, it was like you were the only person in the world, and he was saying with his eyes, "I need you to help me do what I'm going to do. Come with me." And a lot of people did, but I would rather work for myself, and he was a hard guy to work for.
he talked with you.
No, he didn't talk. He talked with his eyes,
Okay.
but I mean, he was I was the only one in the area, so he was talking to me, but only for a few minutes. But everybody who knew him said the same thing, that he just had this look like he would pull you in, and you really had to make an effort to back out, or you would follow him. Some people followed and made a lot of money. Some followed and it was just a bad experience.
Yeah.
But one day, I walked into a very elegant men's store in San Francisco.
Elegant what?
Men's store, men's
Men's
clothing.
store, okay.
Yeah. And everything was very expensive. And Steve Jobs walked in just ahead of me. And 5 salesmen got in line behind him because,
He want to pull you to work with him.
well, no, he wasn't paying attention to me. He was going shopping for clothes. And he walked in, and the salesman got in line behind him because they knew who he was. They opened their order books, and he would pass a table of sweaters and feel one and say, "I want 10 of these." So I went over just to see what the price of that sweater was. It was $500. So he just dropped $5,000 on sweaters. Then he went to look at cashmere coats. And as he went through the store, the salesmen are just writing furiously. He probably spent $20,000. And
น่าจะ600,000 นะ $20,000.
when once I was at a party, Jobs and Bill Gates and another guy who was famous then were in a corner talking by themselves. And there were maybe 100 other people. Nobody dared enter that group.
That group.
Right. You know, if you just came in, didn't know them, oh, I wonder what these guys are talking about. But there was like this donut hole of space around them. No one, if you didn't have $1 billion, you didn't belong in this group. And that was pretty funny. I suppose what they were talking about was really silly stuff, because they can't talk business, they're competitors, and that would be price fixing or something like that. So they were probably saying they were happy or not happy with the space they had, or the traffic they had at their booth. But still, it was interesting to see that people would try to read their lips.
They don't go inside the circle, but they stare at them.
Oh yeah, it was like watching
They
a
talk.
sports event. Everybody was watching these famous guys. This was before cell phones, so I'm sure everybody would have had a camera on them now. But that was back in the beginning when they were more.
Okay.
You could get closer to them.
Okay, and back to your story about the work. Well, after you like stop writing for a while and get back, how was it after that? After like you come back again, you like feel, how to say, really want to write, or you have a lot of idea?
You know, I've had good fortune.
Good fortune?
Yeah, I've had good luck
Okay.
to meet a whole lot of people
Yes.
in all different jobs in all different walks of life, from street people to CEOs.
Yeah, I want to ask you this one. What inspire you because you meet a lot of people and you talk with them?
Right, and I think I have the ability to translate their stories. My stories are about people I've met, and not about
You
me.
don't write about your story.
Well, I write stories about the people I've met,
Okay.
and I've traveled all around the world. I've had probably 40 different jobs.
For
40 different
40?
40 different jobs.
40?
Yeah,
Oh,
over many years. And
interesting. Yeah.
and I've met just a whole range of people, and everybody has a story. If you just let them talk and just turn on the camera or the recorder like you're doing, you can get some pretty interesting stories. And I've been in places that were very interesting at the time, like in San Francisco during the hippie times, in London when the Beatles were popular, behind the Iron Curtain when there was still a wall between East and West, in Vietnam during the war. I've just had the good chance to see a lot of things and meet a lot of different people, and I'm writing those stories now that I'm trying to get them out as fast as I can to make a book and sell it and make a book.
How many books do you have? You had, right? How many books did you
I
write?
I've probably written 7, but only 2 were published. Plus I've done 2 one-man plays.
2 one-man plays.
Yeah, you know what I mean? Where I wrote like a 70-minute script, and
Okay.
I do it by myself on stage.
Okay.
So 2 published books, 2 one-man plays, and dozens of short stories.
Wait, 2 one-man plays is like you speak,
I play characters.
play character?
I act characters.
Okay.
Like, well,
ขอโทษทีนะคะ ต้องใช้ภาพไป
I act. Okay, well, I did a play on the history of technology.
โอเค
So one of my characters was the man who invented the wheel. Nobody knows who he or she was, but I imagined what it would be like to invent the wheel. So this character is telling what it was like, what inspired him to make a wheel,
โอเค
and what happened to him.
โอเค
And my guess is he was probably put to death because the wheel was so disruptive.
Wheel WHEEL right
Yeah, the wheel go around. It was probably so disruptive
โอเค
that people said, "Ugh, I like to carry things."
This is a new story new book that you are writing
This was one of my characters in a one-man play.
โอเค
I play the role of a man who invented the wheel, and because it was so disruptive to what people were used to,
โอเค
they sent him away.
โอเค โอเค but this one sorry you are writing this one or you
I did 20 years ago. Long ago.
1.5 man book the name what is the name of the book
At Home in the Universe.
at home at the universe
At Home
as home
in
in the
the
universe
universe. Yeah.
okay and do you think how I want to ask about how to be like a good writer or like how can you create something you said you get the reward from the book right like the like best of the year for the book
Yeah. Yeah.
what is the name of the book again
Charged bodies. Right. It's a play on words. An electron is a charged body.
oh
An electron is a little thing with a negative charge. But the people who work in Silicon Valley are highly charged people. So it's about highly charged people working with tiny charged electrons to make new things.
This is not a fiction, right?
It's nonfiction.
Non-fiction about their lifestyle.
It's about the life of 25 people, real people, including the man who started Hewlett Packard, the man that started Intel, the man who taught the first course on electronic engineering at Stanford back in the 1920s, and people like that. Some well known, and most of them were not well known, but they had insights that were very interesting. What made me want to be a storyteller was when I was 12, 500 years ago when I was 12, there were 3 people in my life that were fantastic storytellers.
Who? Your parent?
One was my dad, who was very quiet at home, but was invited to speak a lot.
What did he do?
It's a long story. He was a businessman, but he also had a side avocation. He spoke on behalf of Catholic lay people.
Okay, but he is a good public speaking, right? A good storyteller.
Yes, storyteller. He had stories that wouldn't end,
Okay.
but he never told them at home. So I would go to a gathering, and he would be at the head table, and he would get people laughing and crying and angry and happy. He just had this incredible collection of stories, but he never shared them at home.
Okay, same as my father.
Probably.
Okay.
The other person was my scout leader.
Sorry?
I was a Boy Scout,
When you were young, like a student?
12 years old, yeah.
อันนี้จะเป็นคนที่มีอิทธิพลกับตัวเขาในการเล่าเรื่องนะคะโอเค
And he was only a little older than me, but he knew 100 ghost stories,
Ghost story?
stories about ghosts.
Yeah.
And when we would go camping in the woods,
How old were you at that time?
12,
Sorry, 12, okay.
he was 14.
Okay.
And he would tell stories that would keep us up scared stiff, because he was so good at telling these ghost stories. And we're alone with a little fire in the middle of a forest. And I remember still, as he would talk, foam would form in the corners of his mouth. And that's when you knew he was getting warmed up. And then the third one was my 6th grade teacher. She was a nun, a Catholic nun.
แม่ชีนะคะ
And on the first day of school, she picked up a huge book in pantomime. But she said, "Look at this big book that I'm holding." And then she said, "See, the first pages are filled with maps and charts and paintings and diagrams. These are the stories of the world up to now. This is history." And then she turned a few pages over and the page was blank. And she said, "You need to study what's in these first pages so that when it's your time to fill blank pages, you'll do the best you can." Which I thought was pretty wise for a young teacher. The book of knowledge still is not finished yet. You study what has been done, and then when your time comes, you add to those pages. That was the first day of school for us. That was the first day of class. And on the last day of class, somebody asked her, "We had fun this year. Why was your class more fun than any other class?" And she said, "Because next year in middle school, it gets harder. And you have to do well so you get into high school. Then you have to study hard in high school to get into college. And then you have to study hard in college to get a good job. And then you'll work at that job for the rest of your life." She said, I wanted to give you one last year of childhood freedom. She was a great teacher and a great storyteller. And most teachers by 6th grade, they had you read. They didn't tell stories. That's only to the young kids.
Yes.
But she told stories because she said telling stories is as important as reading them. And she was right. Before people could read, they could only hear stories. And being a good storyteller, speaking the story, was very important. So between my dad, my scout leader, and my teacher, I had 3 magnificent storytellers. And I was just so impressed by what the magic they could work that I guess that's when I decided this is what I want to do.